Rebel Wilson has just been unmasked as a Hollywood villain. She currently has multiple lawsuits filed against her on 2 continents, claiming that she bullied, manipulated, lied, and created false essay allegations. These lawsuits also go on to claim that Rebel orchestrated a devastating smear campaign against a producer and a young actress. The legal cases against Rebel Wilson are some of the most insane in Hollywood history, but barely anyone is talking about them, and that's no accident. Also at the center of Rebel's legal troubles are her alleged cutthroat PR team, who've been shown through their own text messages to have created smear campaigns and to also be working tirelessly to bury anything negative about Rebel. And this isn't even the first time this PR group is in court for an alleged smear campaign, as the only reason Rebel was exposed was because the text messages and voice notes containing the planning of these campaigns were exposed through the ongoing Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni lawsuit. But the text messages and voice notes aren't the only unbelievable revelations that have come out about Rebel Wilson, and the other evidence also appears to be both damning, overwhelming, and paints a picture of a Hollywood villain who will stop at nothing to get what she wants. As I said in the intro, this case is absolutely wild. And when I started to hear about it, I thought, oh, that might make an interesting topic. I'll wait until the case is over. But out of my own curiosity, I thought, oh, let me just look into it and see what's going on. And sometimes I'll save some articles and put them in a folder for down the road. But when I started looking into it, I just thought I need to immediately talk about this, because the more I read about it and the more I looked into Rebel Wilson's past, the more red flags, alarm bells. I just couldn't believe what was happening with the lawsuit, but then also what she was doing that anybody with 2 brain cells would know this is what you should not be doing when you're in 3 active lawsuits. And also when you look into her past and things that she said and claimed over the years, it gets even crazier. And I want to tell you about some of the claims and things that she said and done over the years, because I really think it paints a picture of who she is, and it does feed into a lot of what's happening with the lawsuit and gives a lot of context, because the lawsuit is still ongoing, and I want to give all of the information to you so that you can make your own assessment as to what you think is happening, because there's been some, in my opinion, pretty damning evidence that's come out against Rebel Wilson in the past few days. And I also just want to say at the very top of the video, my regular viewers will know I leave every source that I use for making these videos in a Google link in the description box in the pinned comment. I leave a playlist with all the videos I've watched, all the interviews, all the clips that I'm going to show you, and articles and things like that too, because a lot of people involved with this are extremely litigious. So everything in this video is allegations. There also will be maybe my interpretations or my own opinion, but I try not to really put too much of my opinion in. But I might say, oh, well, this happened, so it seems like this happened, but they're all my opinion and allegations, and for the most part, I want to present all the information to you, dear viewer, and you can make your own judgment on what's going on here. And I will, of course, as usual, be putting some clips and things in, because honestly, some of the things I don't think you'd believe me if I didn't put clips in, and I'll put a lot of articles and quotes on the screen, as I always do. If you're audio only, you won't miss any context, but just know that if there's some things I'm saying that sound pretty wild, I will be putting proof of them on the screen too. So let's get into everything, because there is so much to cover here. Rebel Wilson was born in Australia on March 2nd, 1980, and that sentence ended up being a lawsuit too, because she wasn't born Rebel Wilson, she was born Melanie Elizabeth Bones, And she also, for a long time, was choosing not to disclose her age or purposefully didn't correct people about her age. For a long time, she was 35, but she wouldn't correct people when they would write down 29. Where they got 29 from, I'll leave that up to you to decide where they got it from, because there was a lawsuit over it. But Rebel didn't originally want to become an actor. According to Rebel, she was very good in school and was very good in particular at maths. And she was actually going to pursue some sort of career in maths, but originally changed her mind when she was going to apply to university. And she applied to university and went to University of New South Wales. And she got 2 bachelor degrees. This is very important, in law and another bachelor's in art. So she got those degrees, and from everything that I've seen that she's mentioned, her education, anything about what she achieved through higher university, she has always stated that she was a lawyer. While she did absolutely graduate with a bachelor's in law, she leaves out a lot of information, and if my James Franco deep dive has taught me anything, it's to remain very skeptical about these celebrities and their degrees, because these schools require next to nothing from famous people, as the schools get a lot out of celebrities attending. The amount of publicity that James Franco gave all the schools that he attended was absolutely crazy, and the University of New South Wales has definitely got a lot of publicity out of Rebel Wilson's attendance. Rebel talks a lot about being a lawyer and how she was a lawyer before she was famous, but she got into law school before she was famous, went for a bit and dropped out, then became famous, went back, and finished 10 years later. What's not discussed a lot of the time is these celebrities are given massive amount of credit for the work that they're being paid to do on film sets. They'll even be given 2, 3, 4 times the amount of credits that a usual student would do, and they do very little in the way of usual student work. Although we don't know exactly what Rebel Wilson did at school and how much attendance she has spoken about certain things being required attendance that she would fly in and out for. Rebel Wilson has talked about her degrees a lot in interviews, but when it comes to her interviews, she does get a lot of criticism for coming across very disingenuous. Because when you look into a lot of what she says, things aren't always quite what she presents them to be, but she's always very strategic with how she says things. So maybe she was in those law school classes. There actually was a lawsuit over Rebel Wilson's false claims about her name, age, upbringing, and other things. She always presents information that requires people to draw their own conclusions. Like when she was asked about if she was born Rebel Wilson, one of the claims in the lawsuit that I just mentioned, and instead of just answering yes or no, she said that for a Christian girls' school, Rebel is not the best name to have, and said she went by one of her middle names, Melanie. She wasn't born Rebel, she wasn't Rebel in school, but she did technically go by Melanie Elizabeth when she was in school, which is now her middle name. So maybe she could claim here she's being truthful. And you're going to see a lot of questions answered like this throughout the video, especially when we get into her unhinged behavior lately, which includes tirades on social media and an interview that, in my humble opinion, as a chronically online girly with a hyperfixation on pop culture, is one of the most insane interviews I have ever seen come out of Hollywood, and I cannot believe that it aired.
I had zero to do with the websites. I don't even know how to create a website.
Well, it's not saying that you made the websites.
So Rebel Wilson is careful with her words most of the time, but there are still claims she's made that have been quite astonishing, and many publications have looked into these claims and not been able to find a shred of proof about them. For example, Rebel Wilson has always claimed that through her great aunt that she was related to Walt Disney, and even when there was the lawsuit over her name and her age and all these other things that she's claimed, like her upbringing upbringing and stuff, that was one of the things in the lawsuit that she was absolutely adamant about, that she was related to Walt Disney, but there's been no evidence that she's been able to produce. And there's been plenty of like publications and newspapers and magazines that have looked into this, and nobody has been able to find anything at all that would indicate this. And just to briefly touch on the name age lawsuit, because again, it just adds into everything and gives a bit of context, but it's tied up in a bow and done. So there's a lot more with the other lawsuits to get into. But this lawsuit was with an Australian publication, and they basically had been going over all of the claims that she'd made about her past and growing up and what it was like growing up in Australia. And they had kind of collected all of these things like, I'm related to Walt Disney. And she, in a lot of interviews, was adamant that she was born Rebel Wilson. And it wasn't even like somebody asked her, oh, were you born Rebel Wilson? And she said yes. Like, she absolutely elaborated all the time and said, you know, oh, everyone in my family, they have unusual names. And she's admitted it in court and everything. I'll put a quote on the screen that she was born Melanie Bondens, and then she changed her name to Rebel Wilson. And that sort of thing, like, does it matter that someone's changed their name? Of course not. Like, your name is whatever you tell me your name is. Like, it doesn't affect my life in any way. But it is just very telling if someone is not being truthful with what they're telling you. Like, why do you need to be adamant that you were born Rebel? And the Australian publication also dug up a lot of information about how she spoke about her background and her upbringing. And she gave the impression that she grew up quite underprivileged and didn't have a lot of resources growing up, and her family wasn't very wealthy. But according to a lot of Australian people, from what I've read, she grew up in a place called Castle Hill, and that is quite a good area. And her parents were upper middle class and were dog breeders, and she also allegedly went to a private school. So that seems to be pretty contrasting. And so Wilson ended up suing this Australian publication for defamation when they published an article saying that she had really misrepresented her past, that she didn't have this underprivileged background, that her name wasn't actually Rebel, she wasn't born Rebel, that her age, she had misrepresented that according to them, and all these other little things like the Disney claim. And there was loads of other little random things and some very like specific to Australia things that they were able to say, like the Castle Hill place that she says that was an underprivileged place that she grew up, like according to Australian people, it's not. So they end up going to court. And one thing that I think just really isn't talked about when it comes to this case, or like really any defamation case outside of the US, and anything in this sort of realm of defamation, slander, libel, because what most people don't realize is that everything outside of the US when it comes to defamation is so much easier to sue for and to win for, because when it comes to the UK, Australia, it is just easier for people to go after someone for libel, slander, defamation. And when the Australian publication put this information out about Rebel Wilson, they ended up being in this case, and then they brought Rebel Wilson into court, and she did admit a lot of things like that she wasn't born Rebel and all the stuff I mentioned. But because she had gone into all of this detail about how she had lost roles, she believed, and she also said that she was let go from Trolls, the animated movie, and another animated project. And she also said that there were not roles offered to her when she would have expected them to be. And another aspect of the case people don't really discuss is the fact that the case wasn't over whether things Rebel said were true or not. This case was about how the publication had misrepresented her dishonesty and maliciousness. And she did end up getting awarded damages for the case. But another thing that really isn't talked about with this case is that she was originally awarded 4.6 million Australian dollars. And then the Australian publication appealed the case and she had to pay back the vast majority of it. And then she also had to pay the Australian publication 80% of what it cost them to appeal the suit. So she ended up paying back, and then she had to pay back interest on the millions as well. So she really didn't walk away with much. And one thing that's very interesting is that this case is almost 10 years old, and it's the kind of opposite of what's happening now. Rebel Wilson sued for defamation, and now she's being sued twice for defamation and breach of contract. And everything that you look up about her now, there have been a good dozen or so articles in the last 2 days about this case because there was some really significant evidence that came out that we'll get into, like the most significant evidence that I've seen or heard up until this point. And it is articles in places like the Hollywood Reporter and stuff. But what I always do when there's an active case or an active situation unfolding for a video that I'm doing, I'll always, like, once or twice a day when I'm not only researching the video but like up until I post it, which is why you'll get like the editing section sometimes, is that like I will look at what like their Google search results are returning. And I've talked about it a lot with Ashton and Mila, how they will, in my opinion, have PR people like pouring out like a bunch of fluff articles, like using SEO to try and bury all the crap about them. And every time for the past 2 days that I've been looking up her search results on like a completely incognito clean window, the number one article that gets returned is about this case from 10 years ago almost. And of course, Google results are always changing and things are happening and stuff like that. But to me, in my opinion, it just looked very different from what I expected it to be. To me, it looks suspicious because it just didn't have the search result returns that I would expect, or I think a lot of people who know anything about SEO or just even really like websites and social media, what they would expect it to return when someone is a well-known actress in 3 active lawsuits, and even the last lawsuit was almost 10 years ago. It just seems odd to me, but we'll get into that more in a minute, because maybe just if that was all that was happening, like, and I didn't know about the people that she's involved with PR wise, I wouldn't be as suspicious. But I think that you might agree with me when we talk about them. So that lawsuit with Bauer Media happened from 2016 to 2018. The original verdict was 2017, and then everything with the appeal happened in 2018. Now, she did have like a gap in her roles and movies and stuff around this time, but I will say, like, that could be for anything, like for any reason. And we don't know what was happening with her, with casting. And from what I've heard about how she behaves behind the scenes, that doesn't seem surprising to me, because she, like Jonah Hill, and I probably have titled this something like the female Jonah Hill, she has a horrendous reputation behind the scenes and is someone that is spoken about extremely poorly for how rude she allegedly is to cast, crew, anybody really that she doesn't deem at her level. Again, why I'm saying that she's the female Jonah Hill, because that's him in a nutshell. But also when it comes to her behavior with anybody who apparently in any way criticizes her, or not even like really criticizes her, but just maybe doesn't have glowing reviews about everything she does. She is allegedly someone who really, really flies off the handle and will do these like bizarre things. But she also has, even herself in interviews, told some very strange stories about her conduct on set and with other actors. She's spoken about with Tom Hardy in one of her first roles, how she basically shoved one of her digits in one of the only places that you can shove it on a man. And she's also talked inappropriately about touching Anne Hathaway. And some people might say like, oh, Anne Hathaway, you know, has done lots of interviews with her and they seem fine and stuff. And it's like, I don't really put too much stock in that, because what would she say? What would she do? Like, you know, they're having to promote a movie together, and there's lots of money and things invested in this, and they're under obligations to promote things. But she also, even when she's spoken about the Tom Hardy thing, has said like, oh, after it happened, you know, he didn't speak to me and stuff like that. And it's like, are you
I
surprised?
didn't know, like, you shouldn't do that. So I just did it.
And how did Tom
He
react?
gave a really realistic, shocked expression. It was like, what? And then he like didn't really talk to me.
And there's also several other stories that she's told about her interactions with celebrities that, when all put together, they kind of raise red flags, and they might seem like innocuous on the surface. And if it was someone else, it might be innocuous on the surface. But whenever you're taking all of this into context, it just really does paint the picture of someone who is generally not well liked, it seems, within Hollywood, even by other actors. And we've spoken a lot on this channel about people who behave badly behind the scenes and treat, in particular, crew very badly, be it crafty or the grips or PAs. And generally, even if those people are monsters to the crew, generally they're at least decent to other people that they deem at their level, like actors, directors, producers, whatever. But when it comes to Rebel Wilson, I couldn't find anything anyone has said positive outside of when there's a movie being promoted together. And even then, it's very few and far between. And there's different stories in her memoir, Rebel Rising, which there's a whole thing with Sacha Baron Cohen, where there was actually a whole thing about defamation over that too. And this again will go into like how much easier in the UK and Australia and places like that it is to go after someone this way, and how much more worried publications and like even publishers, like book publishers, movies, and you know, interviews and all that sort of thing, how much more worried they are about slander, libel, defamation. Because when Rebel Wilson, her book was published, the bit about Sacha Baron Cohen was taken out of the book in the UK and Australia. Basically, she claimed that Sacha Baron Cohen sexually harassed her and asked her for nudes and things. And she even then later came out and said that her coming out with those allegations is what led to Isla Fisher ending up divorcing him and stuff. And I believe that Isla Fisher has denied that that was the reason, but all of that, there was like a lot in the media about her making these claims. And because Sacha Baron Cohen was so, no, this didn't happen. So the publishers and the publishers' lawyers did not stand by Rebel's statements. Her book was actually published by HarperCollins, who of course are a massive publisher, but they're very well known for standing behind their authors. If you've watched either of my videos about ex-Prince Andrew, the book I referenced a lot in those videos, entitled by Andrew Lowney, that book is about 70% new horrendous accusations and stories about Andrew. In fact, the retractions for Rebel's book were done so last minute that they were physically done on printed copies. Literally, there's like blacked out bits there. So you can see it in the US if you want to. And of course, you know, it gets shared online, and all of the magazines and everything, and magazines, all of the online publications put all the stories out about what Rebel Wilson had claimed against Sacha Baron Cohen. And while those are serious allegations, there's also a lot of stories that she's told in like interviews over the years, and again in her book, about other celebrities not liking her. She told this story in her book about how Adele doesn't like her, and at no point has she even had an interaction with Adele, and no point has like Adele said in an interview about her. But she said that anytime that she would go to something and like try and approach Adele, Adele would like turn away or not go up to her. And then she said that she thinks that Adele, or not thinks, she says Adele doesn't like her because they both were overweight and that they get compared, and Adele didn't like that they get compared. And it's like, have you just made this up in your head? Because this is my own speculation. I would think instead of some like random weight thing that you've thought of, that it's much more likely that Adele either has heard how you behave, how you treat people, or what usually happens, and I would think is much more likely, is that you've worked on something with someone that Adele knows, or someone that is in her team, or her team's friend, or her friend's friend, and they have said, you won't believe how Rebel Wilson behaved, how she treated people, because that is like a common thing. A lot of the time it will be like, oh, you don't realize someone's friends with someone. And I've also heard that allegedly there was no love lost between her and a lot of the Pitch Perfect cast, especially Anna Kendrick. And I know like within the past few years, there's been a picture here or there. There was one in London, I'll hopefully be able to find it, of Anna Kendrick and Rebel Wilson and other cast members taking a picture together if they were at an event or something. But I think that the Pitch Perfect people do get together quite a lot. Brittany Snow actually is from Tampa, and one of my friends from high school, her mom taught her because she went to like one of the other high schools. But as far as reunions between the cast in general, it seems like Rebel is absent a lot from them, and maybe that is because she's busier or something like that. But it is quite a known thing, even just if you see a lot of people like speaking online. And of course, you have to take all these things with a grain of salt. It's fairly well known that she just is generally someone who is not liked by really any of her coworkers and people in general in the industry. Anna Kendrick is another one that I don't think, I think a lot of people know that she's someone that isn't kittens and sunshine and rainbows. And just before we get into the lawsuit, just a few little brief things to mention about other sort of controversies that she's gotten herself into. I mean, she gets into a lot, and the last 2 years, most of the controversies have been centered around the lawsuit because she cannot stop posting stories on social media. There was one the other day that was 17 story slides. And don't worry, I'm going to show you. But she's also in multiple active lawsuits on multiple continents. She is posting about the lawsuit and like talking about people. Like, her lawyers must be absolutely beside themselves with her behavior, unless she's representing herself, because you know she's a lawyer, so you never know. But she has also got a lot of criticism around her doing a lot of promotion and taking payments from places like Dubai, because she is married to a woman. Because of course it's illegal to be a lesbian or gay or LGBTQ in Dubai, apparently, unless you're a celebrity that's going to profit millions from it. And she did get called out about it because she is married to a woman, but there's plenty of other celebrities. I know Beyonce's made like 24 million from it. People like Ellen Pompeo have gone. There was a massive amount of comedians and YouTubers recently that went like a couple of months ago. And that is just something that to me is, it's another one of those things that's like, you just do not care about anything but like your own profiting. Like it's like the people who promote gambling to their viewers. Like, if you ever see me promoting gambling, like it's a sign for help, like I've been kidnapped or something like that. And in that same vein of very morally, ethically questionable promotions, Rebel has also got a lot of criticism lately for her promotion of Noom, which is, and I'll use their word, a weight loss program app. And Noom, originally they used to put themselves out as like an alternative version of like Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig. And I've never done Noom. I don't really know that much about it, but from the bit that I've looked into it, it was something that, you know, you had the app and it was a lot about like retraining your brain and like relearning your relationship with food and eating. And it wasn't anything like an actual, like points on Weight Watchers and things, but the goal was still to lose weight. And a lot of their ads used to be sort of geared around doing a diet without doing a diet. And in the recent couple of years, they have pivoted to microdosing semaglutide, particularly compounding microdosing semaglutide.
What's the secret to peak health? Going micro with Noom. Micro habits, micro wins, microdose GLP-1.
I can do micro.
With Noom, we all can! It's micro season, baby! Micro changes, big results. Get started at Noom.
And I'm sure most people know that semaglutide, like probably more familiar with like the brand names of Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, and about a dozen or more others. It is a now weight loss medication. It was originally for treating diabetes. It slows down stomach emptying, so it's very good at stabilizing blood sugar. And through that, it also kind of turns off or turns down food noise that a lot of people have. And I always like to be super open with you guys. And I have said this in definitely my Amber Lynn video, maybe in the Biggest Loser video too, but I originally didn't have like a weight problem when I was like younger or like teens, 20s stuff. I put on a lot of weight in my late 20s when I was like going through a difficult period. And I ended up losing about 200 pounds just with, I say diet and exercise, but it was basically just diet because I was like really, really heavy in especially the beginning. And actually my whole like goal was, if I lose 100 pounds, like my first 100 pounds, I would start a YouTube channel because I'd always wanted to. And when I did lose my first 100 pounds, I started my original channel, Ash Silver, back in January 2020. And I ended up losing 200 pounds again, just with diet. But about 2 years ago, I started taking a low dose, not a microdose, a low dose of Mounjaro, and I actually started on Wegovy, sorry, and then Mounjaro, and I still take a small dose now. And everybody should talk to their doctor and pharmacist, and if it's anything that they consider, because it just reacts differently to everybody, and everybody has different goals that they're trying to get. But for me personally, if I never lost 1 more pound, I would still take it, because turning off that food noise has been so helpful for me. Like, not just weight loss, it's just been great. And I kind of wish that I had it when I was losing the 200 pounds by myself, because it would have been so much easier. But altogether, I've lost like close to 275 pounds. And I've been very lucky that I've never had a side effect. And I tell you that because the situation with Noom is that they are basically saying to people, one, microdose a compounding version, which compounding is, you don't get it in like a pen like Mounjaro and Ozempic and everything. It comes in like a little pen. I'll put some B-roll in and show you mine. And it's very easy. Like, you turn a little dial, click, inject, it's done. But compounding versions, the pharmacy basically like mixes it up, and a lot of them will send out like drawn needles of it. And there's a lot of criticism for it because, you're mixing it up, and like sometimes the doses might not be entirely accurate. And as far as I'm aware, Noom has to use the compounding versions because the doses are so minuscule that they don't actually produce pens that have this dosage in them. And I also should have mentioned GLP-1 is also used interchangeably like semaglutide, Ozempic, etc. But the vast majority of the dosages for GLP-1s does come in pen form because it is just so much easier for patients to inject, and it also is a very accurate dosing, which you do run that risk when people are injecting themselves at home. And while there's a lot of criticism around like the compounding side and the microdosing side and whether it's effective at all, I'm sure there'll be people telling me that they have done compounding and microdosing and it's been effective. That's great. Anything that is helping people, but in general and like trials and evidence, there's not a lot of it from what I know anyway. But the massive amount of criticism for Noom is the fact that what they're doing isn't what people think it is. Like the way that they promote it, they're promoting it as, we're going to prescribe this semaglutide Ozempic that you're seeing in the media and it's this great tool and everything. But the guidelines around Ozempic and Wegovy and all of these are very, very strict now. They used to be a little bit looser, but you have to have a BMI of 29% or higher or 27 to 28%. And a comorbidity. And by comorbidity, I mean something like sleep apnea or high blood pressure. And I'm not saying BMI is a great way to measure weight or anything, but that just is the absolute prescribing guidelines. With Noom and everything that Rebel Wilson is promoting, you're exposing yourself to a lot of these side effects with not very much upside, very expensive too. And basically what you pay on Noom is what you would pay for the actual semaglutide, and you're getting literally a microdose compounded that might not even be the little microdose that it says it is. I just think there's probably a lot of people out there, especially young girls and women who are on social media a lot, who follow a lot of celebrity stuff. They've heard a lot just in general in the media about semaglutide and Ozempic and weight loss tools, and then they see a lot of celebrities who've lost weight, including Rebel Wilson, who it's very well known that she's lost weight. They see her promoting Noom and they hear microdosing of semaglutide, and they see also the price, which is nearly identical. Like it is pretty much what I pay. And you think, oh, this is what that is. I'm going to sign up for this. And they might not realize, and I know people should be educating themselves and stuff, but especially younger people, I just think that in general, in my opinion, Noom is very misleading. I'm sure that it's helped a lot of people, but especially for the price, it's very, very expensive because their justification is, while you're only paying for like a tiny bit of medication, it's the app and everything else, which is why it's level with the actual medication. And there's even a lot of former Noom patients who have criticized Noom for being misleading. A lot of people have said that when they went to Noom, they of course trust and think that they're going to be prescribed the appropriate dosing. And there were a lot of people that I saw that were surprised when they received their dose in the mail and saw how small the dosage was, and then looked it up online, saw that it was not even a microdose, that it was much smaller than they were anticipating. And not only semaglutide, but this other medication that they use, liraglutide, the doses will be 60% lower than the bare minimum effective dose. And with Rebel's promotions, they're not only targeting people who are in this BMI prescribing criteria, they are also targeting people who were not approved through other sources for the full semaglutide dose. And they also target people who are at a healthy BMI to maintain, and they also target people who might want to lose 10, 15 pounds of dress size. And the way that they go about this is through these celebrity promotional ads. I hope that makes sense, but basically, I just think that it's incredibly misleading. And also, I just do not think that you should be promoting medication as a celebrity or really as anyone. And I know that, well over 50% of my viewership is American, but I cannot explain to you how insane it is to anyone who is not American what it is to turn on the television and there is commercials for drugs on TV. Like when I first moved to the US, that was like, it's one of my most clear memories of turning on the TV and seeing the first ad I ever saw for a medication. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell is this? And now, like, I've shown loads of my friends in the UK the ad, the Ozempic, and sorry about my singing, and like that to people outside the US is so insane. And for a celebrity to do it, I just think that it really, really is scummy. Guys, I cannot with these famous people. I cannot with these celebrities. Literally, it's editing, Ash, by the way. Literally, I just finished recording this second half of the video, okay? And I am importing the video to my computer and I'm like, oh, let me check my Instagram DMs. The first thing that comes up on my timeline, even though I don't even follow Rebel Wilson, but obviously I've been looking stuff up about her, is a picture of her promoting a full body MRI. Now, there is a million reasons that this is a terrible thing to do. And judging by the comment section, which she has now deleted, but don't worry, I have it, people know why you shouldn't be doing these full body MRIs and certainly not promoting them, because actual people need MRIs. It's not a good diagnostical tool. It's exposing you to unnecessary radiation. You're in the machine so long, it's expensive. Because people are having to lie in the machine for so long, they might move or something. And so these full bodies, they create like a lot of like false flags. And whenever it looks like it's something, then the patient is sent for even more invasive, expensive, painful, time wasting, unnecessary tests. And then it's like, oh no, it was actually nothing. Like every doctor that I ever spoke to about this when I used to work in like medical stuff, every single one of them is like, this is a terrible thing, that this is becoming like something celebrities are promoting. And there's honestly like a list a mile long that I could go into about why this is just such a stupid and selfishly dumb thing for these celebrities to do. It's a very like let them eat cake sort of thing. And I know some people will be like, oh, let rich people do what they want. But there is an even worse reason right now that this is probably like the worst possible moment you could ever promote these things, like ethics wise. Right now, 2 days before Rebel Wilson posted this, there was a massive amount of reports that came out that there is great concern about the liquid helium supplies. And if you don't know what liquid helium is, it's used in like a lot of manufacturing, and it is especially used in MRI machines. And you cannot run an MRI without liquid helium because it basically like cools down the magnets, and that like an MRI is just magnets. Again, I just think it speaks so much to Rebel Wilson's character that it's like, I don't care. Whatever I do, whatever I get affects anyone else. Money in my pocket, screw everyone else. And also, I think the fact that she has left the post up and removed the comment section, that you see how well she deals with negativity, deals with criticism, along with Noom, everything else that we've spoken about. Keep this all in mind as we continue on through our journey of insanity, because it just gets even wilder from here. And I think that this is the most difficult video along with the Danny Masterson video that I've ever done. So thank you so much for putting up with this very convoluted editing ass section, but I couldn't not include it. So back to past me. There honestly is so much other criticism for Rebel over her 15 or so year career. She also had a lot of controversy during the pandemic because she was just traveling insane amounts, and not only like doing it but like posting it constantly on social media. And then she would also go to like stores in Australia and be like calling them out for not having stock of this or doing that, and it just really seemed to be, is this what we need to be doing? Like making the lives of people working in a grocery store more difficult because you're saying, oh, why don't you have this stock in or something? And it just seems like a very careless use of an 11 plus million follower platform. But we'll get a lot more into careless, even cruel uses of social media platforms by Rebel Wilson in just a minute. One other big kind of controversy that she had was back in 2015 when she was at the MTV Movie Awards to present an award. She got a lot of criticism for going to the award show wearing a shirt that at the time there was a lot of discussion in the media about police brutality and police racism. And she wore a shirt that said, "Fuck the stripper police." And it was more so what she said when she revealed the shirt that people had problems with, because she didn't reveal the shirt until she was on stage presenting an award. And when she walked up to the microphone, you couldn't actually see the shirt. She started to say, "I know a lot of people have problems with the police," and then paused and seemed like she was actually going to say something about what was happening in America at the time, and well, for all of time. But instead, she then said, "But I really hate police strippers." And then she tore open the shirt to reveal the "fuck the stripper police." And then she went into this monologue about lap dancing and even said at one point, "I hate this injustice, hence the shirt." And again, it's just, is that really the point that you want to make? It's just so unnecessary, careless. And she also, when she was presenting an award at the VMAs, did like a whole bit, and it just came across as so tone deaf, especially coming from a white Australian that was living in the US. And there are a lot of things like that over the years where she does something stupid at one of these award shows or something. There's some backlash at the night or like the next day. There's a few headlines and articles, and then it kind of dies down and goes away. And she really gets herself into these sort of things all the time because she seems to just like put out so much garbage on social media too, to feed into her own ego. And then she also won't back down when she's wrong. So when she does get criticism for things like the t-shirt at the VMAs, she will then attack people about it. And so it just blows up into a bigger thing, and she cannot back down, and she starts digging herself in a deeper hole, which is what we're going to come into with this lawsuit. But there's also things that she's done that you see her always wanting to inflate her ego or like feed her ego. And there are countless examples. One of like the bigger online ones was when she got the lead in the Netflix movie Isn't It Romantic, which is a romantic comedy. And she ended up saying that she was the first plus size woman to get a lead role in a romantic comedy, which is just obviously not true. And when a lot of people said, actually, there's a ton of people that have been leads in romantic comedies, like even off the top of my head, like Queen Latifah and stuff like that. And when people said that, she went immediately, not wanting to back down. And then she started blocking all these people and biting back. And it wasn't even like people that were coming at her. Like people were literally just saying, hey, by the way, like Queen Latifah. And she just ended up blocking like a ton of people. And then it turned into this whole thing of like Rebel Wilson blocked me and stuff like that. So again, you're going to see this pattern now that we're going to go into the lawsuit, that she ends up doing something stupid, being wrong, and then she can't accept that she's wrong, doesn't back down, in my opinion, seems to fabricate or, well, we'll not even give it a name. You're gonna see, and then it blows up into a huge thing because she could not admit she was wrong or back down. But let's get into this insanity because it is absolutely wild. And I even I have like notes everywhere because there's so much insanity to keep track of. So I'm going to try and explain this in the most straight through breakdown way possible, because not only are there like quite a few situations, there's 3 lawsuits, multiple people, and 2 continents. So let's try and keep it as straight through as possible, and then we'll expand on bits after I go through like the basic timeline. So the basic timeline is Rebel Wilson is having her directorial debut with this movie, The Deb, short for debutante, and they're shooting it in Australia. It's an Australian movie, and cast in the lead role is a woman named Charlotte McInnes. She is in her early 20s when this is going on, and she was actually the recipient of kind of a scholarship that Rebel had done for Australian theatre talent, and she was very green coming to this production, which will be relevant later with some of the accusations, maybe not accusations, some things that Rebel implies about her career after the Deb. And so this movie is being produced by 3 producers. One is a married couple. Amanda Ghost is the wife, and she is the other like main person in this with Rebel and Amanda McInnes. And then Amanda's husband is a man named Gregory Cameron. And then the other producer is Vince Holden. This movie, as I said, is in pre-production 2023. They shoot it 2024, and it really just escalated, not only throughout the filming, but into the post-production period and throughout them trying to show it at things like the Toronto Film Festival. And the movie hasn't actually got distribution like globally and things because of all of this controversy that's happening. So we need to actually start at the genesis of the issue, which, according to the producers and anybody involved who's not Rebel Wilson, a lot of this controversy came from Rebel being denied a writing credit. She had lobbied for a writing credit, like for a full writing credit. And I know I've talked a lot on the channel about credits and how important they are to people in the industry, especially actors, and how things like having and being the first person in the credit and placement on posters and things. And sometimes it might look incredibly subtle. It might even look like there's no difference to most people, but I promise you, it's the result of a lot of contract negotiations. One of the funniest credits to me is Apple TV's The Morning Show, as they have 2 of the biggest actresses, Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston. And I actually should have said Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, because you will see in the credits with that show that it is Jennifer Aniston that has top billing. And I'm showing you on the screen, like, it's literally the difference of tiny little bits of space where either Jennifer Aniston is slightly ahead of Reese Witherspoon, but in all of the posters, all the material, you will always see Jennifer Aniston's names first or slightly higher than Reese Witherspoon's. And Jennifer Aniston is always ever so slightly closer to the camera in the promotional material. And that might not even, people might not even notice that, but I promise you, all of that is so important to actors, writers, producers, directors, and they will have massive meetings and it'll be in contracts and the font size and everything. And so Rebel Wilson, who was directing this movie, she's produced 5 movies before, but this was her first time directing. She wanted a shared writing credit. So it would have been the writer, who was a woman named Hannah Riley, and this was like her very, very first like big gig, and it would have been and Rebel Wilson. But the reason that the Writers Guilds exist, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is to protect writers against actors and people that have a lot of power kind of muscling in and getting these shared writing credits when they haven't really done the work of a shared writing credit.
They deserved a shared writing credit, yes.
But what you got instead was an additional
Yeah.
writing
And I'm
credit.
like, all right, okay. Yeah.
And I would hazard a guess that she wanted the whole starring Rebel Wilson, written by Rebel Wilson, directed by Rebel Wilson, because even on the posters for the Deb, there is a massive, massive directed by Rebel Wilson in the center of the poster, and having a bigger than the actor's prominent yellow, bold directed by Rebel Wilson in the center of the poster just screams ego to me. But she didn't get her way with this writing credit, and the Australian Writers Guild was like, no, you can have an additional writing by credit.
But you weren't really happy with that, were you?
To be honest, I mean, that I should have been given the shared credit, but it's totally fine.
And so, according to everybody else involved with this case, Rebel Wilson was very, very infuriated by this. And the reason that I wanted to tell you all the other stuff about her before we talked about the case is because I do think that through all the other things that we discussed, you can see how the kind of shtick that she has in Hollywood is just that, a shtick and a performance.
Well, they say that your persona as the affable, funny girl who supports women and is a farce, and that you're in fact a bully.
There is zero evidence of any kind of, bullying.
It's editing Ash and G audio listeners. I mean, this clip is the least of her worries. There's so many other ones. The words you're looking for are, I am not a bully, not there's not any evidence of me being a bully. Christ. Honestly, I just had to put it in there. I mean, maybe somebody could make the defense like, oh, she's saying that there isn't evidence of it, but maybe you should affirm that you aren't a bully. But anyway, just wanted to show you that. So I wanted to include that information because I do think it just colors everything else that we're going to talk about. And so the movie goes into pre-production with the lead actress, the writer, a lot of these people, it being what they think is going to be their big break. And although Rebel Wilson is starring in it, it is her directorial debut. So it's a big deal for a lot of people. And they end up shooting the movie in Australia. On the 6th of September 2023, when the movie's in pre-production, 3 of the people associated with the movie go to Bondi Beach and they go in the water for a bit. And those 3 people are Amanda Ghost, Charlotte McKinns, and an assistant. What ends up happening is Amanda Ghost has kind of like a medical episode where the water is really, really freezing, and she's in there, doesn't realize how cold she's getting, starts showing signs of like hypothermia, with maybe not that extreme, but she's like shaking, like, you know, your lips start turning blue and stuff. And they're quite close to the penthouse apartment that she's staying in with her husband through production of the movie. So Charlotte McKinns and the assistant bring Amanda Ghost back to the apartment. They put on like a boiling hot shower and bath. And at this point, they're all in their bathing suits. And so Amanda goes in the shower, but it's not quite like warming her up, like she's still freezing. So they put her in the bath at this stage. And again, both in their bathing suit, because they've all been in the water, Charlotte McKinns goes in the bath too. It's a penthouse apartment, so I'm assuming it's probably like a big, massive, and it's Bondi Beach. I'm sure it's a nice apartment, and it's not like, you know, the little tub that's in there with like the stand-up shower in the tub. So I imagine that it's not really what most people would picture too. And they're in their bathing suits. Like, it's a completely different situation than you will see Rebel Wilson painting, because what she says is,
last night, Amanda Ghost asked me to have a bath and shower with her, and it made me feel really uncomfortable.
it's just painting a very different picture than what seems to have happened. Again, I wasn't there, but this is the hymn sheet that everybody else is singing from, and it just seems to be Rebel Wilson is the only person that doesn't agree with what happens now, because she did actually agree with everybody else back when this incident happened, because the day after this happens, Rebel and Amanda Ghost and everybody are going to set, and Charlotte McKinns tells Rebel Wilson this story in kind of a, oh my God, you won't believe what we did yesterday and how funny of a situation. Like, if you did describe it to someone, leaving out that we were freezing and all of that and weren't in our bathing suits, it might sound kind of strange that the producer and an actress are in a bath together. And so Charlotte McKinns and Rebel have this conversation. Rebel does ask her, like, are you sure that you weren't uncomfortable or anything like that? And there are text messages of this conversation. So I'll read to you what Rebel said to Amanda Ghost after she had this conversation with Charlotte, the actress. So on the 7th of September 2023 at 1:58 p.m., Rebel Wilson texts the producer Amanda Ghost and says, Charlotte McKinns, the lead actress, says all good. She just meant, quote, it was a bizarre situation, end quote. Not that she personally felt uncomfortable, kiss. And I'm sure most people know, British, Australian, everybody puts kiss at the end of everything they say, even if it's like something aggressive or it's like your boss. Sometimes a kiss goes in for pretty much anything. But then Rebel sends one more text and says, so all good there. Amanda Ghost then immediately responds and says, oh, thank fuck for that. Oh my God, that's hilarious. I nearly died. She, I would think, is being maybe hyperbolic, and maybe she didn't quite nearly die, but Rebel is going to use this quote against her later down the road. So Rebel then responds again and says, she instantly was like, quote, oh no, zero issues at all, end quote. That's the entire exchange that they have about this incident. They move on, it's forgotten about, nothing more to see here. Until Rebel is then denied the writing credit, and things also start to escalate between the producers and Rebel. There's just like lots of issues on set. Today, Rebel claims that at one point she was falsely imprisoned on set. That's one of the things in her lawsuit, because she said that the producers were trying to hold her in a room to get her to sign documents, along with her claims for defamation against the producers and embezzlement against the producers, which we'll get into in a second. So things throughout the filming get really tense and things escalate, and then into the post-production and when they're trying to figure out the release and things, according to the producers, Rebel became very disgruntled about her creative control over the production, and then it just gets more and more fraught between them, and Rebel is incensed that she doesn't have this writing credit. And so there seems to be like an agreement between the producers that we don't want to release this film when everything is the way it is. With things already tense, there starts to be issues with the ownerships and rights of the movie. Rebel Wilson starts firing off emails to one of the main financial backers of the movie, a billionaire called Len Blavatnik. I have one of these emails on the screen, and Rebel starts trying to kick other people off the project. And in my opinion, it seems like this is so she can profit more financially. While the writing credit probably was something that was important to her, especially given her ego, I do think that the mainstream media isn't focusing enough on this side of it. And when a movie has a smaller budget like this, 15 million, maybe 20 with like marketing and all the other stuff, there is a chance to profit very handsomely, especially with US distribution. And if it's a good or even decent movie, that's not a huge budget to make back. So Rebel Wilson sends the email on the screen on July 29th, 2024, which is about 6 weeks before the film The Deb premieres. And if you read the email, she is trying to stroke the ego of the billionaire, saying things like, "You're incredibly intelligent," and then also slating Amanda Ghost and the other producers. She also is saying things like, "I don't know why they rescinded your offer to let me buy out the film. That was clearly the best option for all involved. Happy to do that." Or just kick them off the project and send the message that you don't tolerate their bad actions and I'll get you the profits. If this lawsuit goes ahead, it will very publicly ruin them. I mean, the quote anaphylactic shock fake story will go everywhere. It's so bad for them. Much love, Rebel. XOXO. After that email is sent on July 29th, just over a week later is when all of the work starts being done to create the smear sites against Amanda Ghost, and a lot of those sites also mention this billionaire Len Blavatnik, and they say things like, Amanda Ghost is Len Blavatnik's Ghislaine Maxwell, and she was supplying Len with women. From this email being sent, 6 weeks later, The Deb is supposed to premiere at the Toronto Film Festival. And I'm assuming this is like my own speculation, that seeing how Rebel has behaved from the summer 2024 onwards, when the movie's going to premiere and stuff like that at Toronto, I can imagine that there was a lot more that hasn't come out about her behavior prior to this and what was going into the tensions and escalating tensions, because her behavior from what we can publicly see onward seems to, again, in my opinion, be quite unhinged, because when the producers say, we're not going to show the movie at the Toronto Film Festival because we can't agree on all these things and it will just open like a can of worms and make everything worse and escalate the tensions. Rebel then decides in June 2024, she's very, very busy in the summer of 2024. She issues a demand letter that she says that she was promised all of these things and she's going to walk away from the project if she doesn't get the shared writing credit and also a record label deal under Warner Music. And the aforementioned billionaire who financed a lot of The Deb is the owner of Warner Music, so that's where that's coming from. And she accompanies this demand letter with the following quote: "Before initiating costly and time-consuming litigation, we are willing to explore the possibility of resolving this matter through informal and amicable means." Interestingly, Rebel Wilson never got a record
And
deal,
just as
but
a
someone else
reminder,
involved
this is
with
how
the
she's
story
treating
did,
someone who
Charlotte McKinns,
she claims
and how I her
already-
own social media and going over to the movie's social media and posting on there as well against the lead actress and producer in the movie. And just as a reminder, this is how she's treating someone that she says was assaulted on her film set. And we're going to get into all of her other unhinged social media posts in just a second. But the headline from Variety read, "Rebel Wilson escalates battle with the Deb producers in bizarre outburst of jealousy after Cannes yacht party," because Len Blavatnik had a yacht party for everyone associated with the Deb at Cannes. After this party, Rebel then went to her and the movie's social media and posted a tirade against Charlotte, saying things like, "So glad you got your record deal, Charlotte, at the expense of the 300 people who worked on the Deb and really want to see it released." And this is on the Instagram of the Deb, of the movie. She also posted stories accusing Charlotte McKinns of wearing a culturally inappropriate dress. And the store in which Charlotte bought this dress actually came and went to her defense and spoke on Instagram about how what Rebel was saying was untrue and she was totally out of line. So I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just letting you know that someone else got something else that Rebel wanted too. And after her demands weren't met, it seems as though the posts about Charlotte were just Rebel warming up. Rebel then decides that she is going to go onto her Instagram that has over 11 million followers, and she's going to name all of the producers, say that they're holding the movie hostage, and just whip up like a bit of a frenzy and telling her followers that they need to get this movie out.
In the meantime, though, I still finished the movie. I made this great movie, The Deb. They're saying, it can't come out. They might not release it. They might bury it. If the movie doesn't play at Toronto, it's because of these absolute fuckwits.
And because she has over 11 million followers and then this starts getting picked up places, the producers, I'm sure, were getting a lot of messages and everything like that. And so they decide, okay, just release the movie at the Toronto Film Festival, and they do so. But Rebel continues on social media.
I just tell it how it is, so I'm just going to tell you who they are. Their names are Amanda Ghost and Gregor Cameron, and an executive producer who works with them called Vince Holden. And this behaviour is absolutely vile and disgusting. So that's my dilemma.
She starts making all these claims against the producers, particularly Amanda Ghost.
Now, these people, Amanda Ghost in particular, has a history of doing this kind of thing, mainly to music artists, but also to people in the film business. So the thing is, these people are forced to sign NDAs or, otherwise threatened or bullied to not speak out. As you guys know, I'm not like that. I won't be threatened. I will speak the truth and, warn people about these people in the industry who are just not behaving ethically.
Then she starts telling this story about Amanda Ghost being really inappropriate with Charlotte McKinns.
So I said, reported, I guess you would say, their bad behaviour when I found out. Not minor things, big things, inappropriate behaviour towards the lead actress of the film, embezzling funds from the film's budget.
And Rebel starts saying that Charlotte McKinns came to her the day she sent those text messages saying, "Oh no, 0 issues," is what Charlotte said to me. She starts claiming that Charlotte had an issue and she felt uncomfortable, and Rebel took it upon herself to report Amanda Ghost for sexual harassment. So after Rebel whips up this frenzy and she's doing things behind the scenes that we'll get into, Amanda Ghost, her husband Gregor Cameron, and the other producer Vince Holden end up suing Rebel for defamation over the sexual harassment claim and over Rebel claiming that the producers had embezzled over $1 million from the film, because Rebel said that she's just now discovered that they've embezzled over $1 million from the production.
The counter to your allegation about the embezzlement is that as a first-time director, you just didn't understand how the budget of the film works.
As somebody who's graduated law school and did quite well academically, obviously, I understand a film budget.
So these lawsuits have been launched, and obviously it's not like a quick thing. So everything is being put together. And while that is happening, in August of 2024, there are allegedly instructions issued by Rebel Wilson to 2 individuals called Melissa Nathan and Jed Wallace to launch a smear campaign against Amanda Ghost and create websites like websites that Melissa Nathan and Jed Wallace have allegedly created before. As Melissa Nathan and Jed Wallace, their clients include people like Johnny Depp, Drake, Tiffany Trump, and also non-celebrities like the Alexander brothers, who did unspeakable crimes against women and who have just been convicted. They were very rich real estate brothers, and they had smear sites created against their victims. But most people who are watching this who recognize the names of Melissa Nathan and Jed Wallace probably do so because another client of theirs was Justin Baldoni. In fact, the only reason we know any of this about Rebel Wilson, about the sites targeting Amanda Ghost, about any of it, is because it all came out in the lawsuit between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. We're going to go over some pretty damning voice notes and wild text messages that, in my opinion, make it crystal clear who ordered the creation of these websites. And there even were text messages sent berating Melissa Nathan and Jed Wallace for not doing a good enough job with the websites and the smear campaign against Ghost. But Rebel Wilson says it can't have been her who created these websites because she doesn't know how to make a website and she doesn't know if the messages that I'm going to show you are real. And yes, that's actually what she's saying. And I'll even show you the clips of her saying exactly that. What's even worse is those are probably her better answers. Just just to mention too, Melissa Nathan and Jed Wallace could probably be a deep dive series in themselves. And maybe when all these trials are concluded that they're involved in, we can look into it all, maybe even on my new channel, Coffee, Cults and Cats, where I finally posted my first video over there about the Buffy cancellation. And I'm just going to take like 15 seconds to say that I have another new channel. I know another one, but Coffee and Cults is technically my second channel. So sometimes good things come out of starting a new channel. I guess that's only if you like the content though. But the other channel is called Coffee and Cults for Sleep, Chores and More. And it's going to be like super long, uncut videos with like all the WB videos together, all the Scientology videos together. That channel is linked below. And final thing, I promise, I've got lots of new merch that is linked down below. I'm wearing some of it in the video, and I'll announce the winners of the giveaway at the very end of the video. But I've actually been going through the last couple of videos and just randomly either closing my eyes or getting G to like stand on her iPad to randomly pick winners, like additional winners. So for the next few weeks, I'm just going to go through and randomly pick additional winners to send some extra stuff to, just as a thank you so much for all of the support this year so far. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you so much for letting me have this little mini merch plug of the Miss Gloria collection. So I'm going to play you the audio of Jed Wallace issuing instructions to someone that worked for him to make this website. And then I'm also going to read you out text messages between all of these people around the creation of these websites that were amandaghost.com and amandaghostsucks.com, which they are now down, but I'm sure I'll be able to find screenshots for.
Oh, also, talked about Rebel. Like, here's the deal with Rebel, and I think you, me, and Brian, and maybe Katie, since she'll write this thing. What we have to do is the biggest piece here is that we have to connect Amanda Ghost with Vlotnik. And I was just like, so basically what we need to do is we need to create a path where we expose Amanda Ghost as like the new Heidi Fleiss. Like she masquerades as the reason why she sucks so bad at music is because she's actually getting hookers for Vlotnik, right? And that's what she does. She's an absolute madam, and that's why she's so lethal, blah, blah, blah. But he's right. Like, we can't just do like, oh, she's a bitch, she sucks. It's like, it's gotta be really, really heavy and connected to something that heavy. So we'll talk about that tomorrow too.
So that audio was Jed Wallace in a meeting, and he was recording it allegedly because one of the employees, Katie Case, wasn't in the meeting, and she was the person that was going to be putting together the sites. And she has actually spoken in court and talked about putting together the smear site, but there's also text messages between her and Melissa Nathan that reference what Jed said, and I'll read those to you now because they also give a lot of context and information. So Melissa Nathan texts Katie Case and starts out by saying, I'm already trying to kill one Rebel story. I'm assuming trying to kill stories about her being unhinged on social media and the lawsuit stuff, because again, this is like August 2024. And then she says like a second message saying, so basically Rebel wants one of those sites. Casey Case replies saying, I know, I'm sorry, and okay. Melissa comes back and says, should be a mixture of that document that I think Carolina pulled about Amanda Ghost, or the intern pulled, the voice note, and this, end of that text message. And the and this that Melissa Nathan was referring to was a document that's going to become very, very important in just a second. And then Casey Case replies saying, okie dokes, I'll pull this together this morning. Then Melissa Nathan replies saying, thank you, it can be really, really harsh, and then link it to Jed's voice note thing, Russian oligarchs and making her a madam, basically, lol, said Jed. And then Casey Case replies saying, oh my god, lol, okay, this one will be fun. So in a deposition, Casey Case ended up saying that when she was making this smear site, she worked off the voice note from Jed Wallace that we heard, the texts from Melissa that I just read, and also the aforementioned document that was attached to those texts from Melissa Nathan. It was basically a how to smear Amanda Ghost. It had all of the allegations that they ended up putting on the website. Things like claiming she was the Indian Ghislaine Maxwell, really, really horrible things about her, and a lot of the exact copy and language that appeared on those websites. And what I'm showing you on the screen is the screenshot of the properties of this document, because the person who is listed as the creator of this document is a production company called Camp Sugar, and Camp Sugar is the production company of Rebel Wilson. And then further to all of this, there were also in court revealed to be text messages from Rebel Wilson that were sent after the smear sites went up, but failed to kind of gain any traction. And Rebel's text messages read, "You were supposed to get the negative information out about Ghost and have failed to do so." So what's also crazy is that it's not just the information that happened in court or happened through these social media posts or anything like that. Rebel also sat down with 60 Minutes Australia and did an interview with them where she addressed all of these allegations and the lawsuits. And she has also continued to post on social media. And I will also show you, after we talk about the Unhinged interview, the 16 page stories slides that she posted just the other day, like when I'd already started working on this video, when I thought it couldn't get even more unhinged. And she is just saying all sorts of things that her lawyers must be absolutely panicking, because it's kind of like the worst move to make when you are in an active lawsuit, along with this interview. So she does this interview with Tara Brown, who regular viewers on my channel might recognize her because she has done a lot of Scientology interviews. And obviously, not being Australian, I don't really know that much about her, but anytime that I've seen her this interview, she does an amazing job, like absolutely amazing. And especially because it's like against a celebrity, she really calls Rebel Wilson out and like presses her to, like, pushes back against her answers, which not, especially today, not a lot of journalists are capable of doing. There's kind of art of a good interview a lot of the time is dead today because journalists are so worried about upsetting actors and access being cut off and things like that. But she's also done very good interviews, in my opinion, with Scientology and people who survive Scientology. Again, I don't know like much else about her, but this interview is done very well. And 60 Minutes had actually gone to the Deb set when they were filming, like way before all this came out. And Rebel Wilson starts out by saying, "Oh, the day that you came to the set, it was the day before that I was falsely imprisoned." So throughout this interview, I know this isn't going to be like great evidence, but the vibes are so off. Like, I watched this the first time and immediately, like, this is why I wanted to do this video, because I just thought it was so off. The answers, her behavior, like how she comes across, she just comes across so, in my opinion, fake in it. And the answers are just complete garbage. Again, in my opinion. I know I've said my opinion about 10 times, but again, everybody's very litigious that's involved with this. So the questions that get asked that really were, to me, the most shocking answers is, Rebel, you can see her like dance around the questions. She doesn't really answer the questions. And I guess that law degree is coming in handy here. She really just makes herself like sound ridiculous while also not answering a lot of the questions.
You actually pointed your followers on Instagram to those websites that you posted on the Deb Instagram.
Okay, I have to break this clip up with something because copyright at the moment is just out of control, and I have to show you this full clip, pauses included, because every time I watch this clip, and I have seen it seriously 27 times through like pulling it and checking, and this is the final check, and I still laugh out loud. I mean, I'm not even watching it, and I'm I'm laughing about it. It's just the way the interviewer asks her the next question and like the pauses. Oh, it's amazing. So sorry about this, but you get to see some more cute G. So win-win.
I don't have any memory of doing that, no.
Is it, you don't remember it, but is it possible that you did that?
I don't believe so, no.
So at one point, she's asked about the text messages, about the messages saying that Charlotte had no issue with Amanda, and why did you send these text messages saying, oh, there's no issue, like it was just a silly situation that happened? Why have you changed your mind and now you are saying that someone else was harassed? And Rebel doesn't answer at all.
You respond. She instantly was like, oh no, zero issues at all.
How I would describe those texts is that I'm trying to maintain professional communication with Amanda Ghost.
And then she goes into talking about how she was trying to keep this good relation with Amanda Ghost because she was the connection to the money for the movie.
She's the producer. She is the access to the money for the film. And I'm trying to keep it very professional communication.
And I'm telling you this too because you might think, why aren't you just playing what she said about the text messages? But she just doesn't answer it. She just gives this nothing word salad answer. She then goes on to really try and build herself up as, oh, she had to speak up and put in this harassment claim because she was protecting her actress, even though her actress is suing her for defamation.
Do you think that's a bit of a rough way to treat somebody who you believe was caught up in an inappropriate sexual situation?
I mean, I have a lot of sympathy, and I've been very elegant in being silent. And
she also then goes on to, in my opinion, infer that Charlotte McKinns has only got work because of maybe some relationships that she's involved behind the scenes, because Rebel starts to say that she thinks it's very interesting and peculiar that since Charlotte McKinns was in The Deb, the only production that she's been involved in is with Amanda Ghost, and then she was cast in this big lead role. And she says, oh, there was loads of other people that were well known and had won awards and they didn't get the part, but she did. And she's changed her story about what happened with Amanda Ghost. And so it seems like she's trying to say, oh, I am right and she was harassed, but she's changed her mind because she's been given this role in exchange for her silence or exchange for doing something else with Amanda Ghost, which is just so scummy. And she starts talking really about oh, why did she get this part over other people? And it's you got a lead part in Pitch Perfect when no one knew who you fucking were. So how is that any more unusual? And Charlotte McKinns had a lead role in The Deb. She's only in her early 20s, and that was one of her first roles. You had 4 lines in Bridesmaids, and then you got a lead role in Pitch Perfect. That seems like a much more unusual thing than someone getting a lead role and then getting another role.
Just really odd that is where this is.
What are you saying? What are you intimating?
I'm saying if you look under the hood, there's probably a lot more to this story.
The interviewer, Tara Brown, also asks her, why did you do all this on social media? Why did you post to over 11 million people, all these things that were going on behind the scenes?
But Rebel believes Charlotte McInnes has been convinced to change her story and was happy to share with her 11 million Instagram followers her view the young actor and singer lied to further her career.
And she tries to really, sorry, a loud bike went past. And she again sidesteps that question, but then focuses in on the fact that, oh, I might have named all the producers, but I didn't name the person who was harassed, Charlotte McKinns. And it's yeah, okay, maybe you didn't name her, but hello, it's 2026. Exactly the sort of stuff that we're talking about now. People can put the pieces together. You directed one movie and you're calling out the producers by name and all this other crap, and you're talking about a lead actress, people can probably put the pieces together who this person is. So yeah, maybe you didn't say their name, but you as good as did.
That when I first spoke about this publicly, I didn't identify her. She chose to make statements and identify herself. And I've been very elegant in being silent, and this is the first time I'm speaking about it.
And one of the worst parts where she comes off, in my opinion, really, really badly, I mean, again, most of the interview, but the part that she really doubles down on things and then also just it doesn't make any sense what she's saying, and also tries to tap into this, oh, women and girl power, and oh, I'm just being punished because I'm a first-time female director, when it's like, no, I think that you're being sued for a lot of other reasons.
Their argument is that they couldn't allow the film to premiere because of the issues between you and them.
Because they knew it would be good for me as a first-time female director to have that profile, and they blocked it. As
Tara Brown basically asked Rebel Wilson, like, if everything you're saying is true, if they did embezzle money from the movie, if there was this harassment, if they did just not want to release the movie because they wanted to get back at you, what is their motivation? Like, why are they doing this? And she basically says that they don't care about the $15 million budget, which it's probably close to 20 with marketing, and probably even more when you take into account everything that's happened in these lawsuits.
It doesn't make sense, does it, that they block it, that they lose $15 million like that?
I don't think the money really matters.
They were ready to forego that money just to get back at you.
Seems like it.
So all the other suits are mostly being filed in the US, but there was one other suit that was filed by the producers against Rebel Wilson in Australia, and this was all allegedly over Rebel Wilson's deliberate sabotaging of the rights of the movie in order to financially profit more herself. The production company for the movie that the producers have, it's called AI Films, but it's not anything to do with actual AI. So this other lawsuit was filed in the end of the summer in 2025 in Australia. And in this lawsuit, they allege that Rebel Wilson deliberately sabotaged the film's release, made all these false statements to damage the film's marketability, threatened distributors because the deals started to collapse over everything. And they say that Rebel Wilson was attempting to devalue the film to acquire rights cheaper. And then they also went on to say that all her behavior and all her blasting on social media financially damaged the film and also caused like reputational damage to the movie itself and the producers. Hi guys, Editing Ash and G here. Just wanted to jump in because I wanted to just re-record the little bit about the 16-slide story that I've mentioned that Rebel put up recently. And there's been a few other things that she's said and done that I just wanted to wrap it all up in one hopefully concise bit. And I first of all just think it's incredibly suspicious, strange, a red flag that she is speaking out so much, because it would be unusual anyway, someone who is a successful multi-millionaire actress with a lot of name recognition, because anybody at that level 99.9% of the time is going to have a huge team behind them of not only like PR and management and agents and all of these things, and lawyers, and every single one of them will be saying shut the fuck up, and she's not. And with her you have the added fact that she did go to law school, so anybody in her situation would not be speaking at all about this. Like, they would just be either saying nothing or saying no comment. But she is speaking non-stop and saying so much. I mean, some of the smartest people I know are lawyers. Someone in my family, the smartest person I do know, is a lawyer. And I know if I got involved with anything and said a word about it, they would kill me. Never mind posting 16 slide stories about why you just have to speak out. So I'm going to read a few bits of the stories because it's very hard to read the font that she's used. I'll show the slides throughout, and I have shown a few of them, like I showed the email that she puts in these stories, but it is wild. And I can't believe that anyone in her position as an actress at this level would do it, but someone who knows better. So to me, that indicates that she's panicking, because if you were confident that you were in the right, you wouldn't say anything. And one final thing to say before I read these out is I also find it absolutely disgusting that she is basically implying through these stories, through her interview with 60 Minutes, and lots of other social media posts, that there is like this conspiracy against her. And she doesn't say the words Jeffrey Epstein and anything like that, but she massively implies that she's some sort of victim of like a conspiracy. And I really do recommend the Australia 60 Minutes interview if you're in any way like interested in all this. It's in the sources, of course, because just watching the whole interview, even if you just skip to I think it's like the last 2/3, that's the interview, it really, really does paint a picture of what's going on here. But I think that the clips that I've shown do also paint the same picture. So she starts off these stories by saying, like, regarding the lawsuit, yada, 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 I just wanted to make a beautiful movie. And then she says, I was going to wait to take the stand, but the absolute bombardment on me as a person via heavily paid crisis PR firms recently has taken its toll, and it's impossible to say nothing. When I'm sure everybody involved in this does have PR. PR is necessary. PR can be effective. PR can be good, but not, this isn't PR, what these people do, these allegedly do with these smear campaigns and stuff like that. Like this, that's something else. And another thing to add that just came out yesterday, and it's the 31st of March today, is that she actually had her lawyer put out a statement saying the other side needs to stop talking. The other side needs to stop making comments. There's only one person making comments. I mean, the lawyer on the other side, Camille Vasquez, she said a few little statements here and there, the way that a lawyer would when they're talking about, this is the case that I'm dealing with, and these are the claims that are being made, and all the usual things. And I just found that wild, because everybody else has said nothing. The story no one is writing is this: the film, along with the people who I complained about, are funded by the billionaire USSR-born oligarch Sir Len Blavatnik. And this is what I mean. I just think it's really, really disgusting that there is unbelievable amount of victims through Jeffrey Epstein, and not even the people that she's claiming these things about, but that you would try and make it seem like all these people are in some sort of conspiracy against you. And if I'm proven wrong, I absolutely will hold my hands up and say there was a big conspiracy against Rebel Wilson. But a lot of the stuff that I've shown in this video, no one's made her say these things. No one's made her post this story. No one's made her do an interview 60 Minutes. So, and again, I wanted to show you everything, even the Noom and the full body MRI, so that people can come to their own conclusions about what they think is going on here. And then there's a bunch of slides saying she tried to ask the billionaire to get rid of them out of the movie, and then the email that I showed you already. And then she says that Len Blavatnik was in the Epstein files, which there's a email from Jeffrey Epstein to Peggy Siegel, who I think was one of his PAs, that is basically asking for a friend to help a friend get a job through a last name Blavatnik, which it could be him, but there's lots of people mentioned in the Epstein files. I mean, it even says when asking Peggy, leave my name out of it. So I would have to do more looking into this. Like I don't see anything so far that seems to show that Len Blavatnik went to the island or anything like that. Actually, one thing that goes in the pro column for Len Blavatnik is he actually has an age appropriate wife who seems like I mean, not a normal person, they're billionaires, but you know what I mean. And so, as far as I know, there aren't a lot of stuff about him, but I would have to look into it more. I absolutely do want to do a big deep dive into lots of aspects of the Epstein stuff, especially the PR stuff, because Melissa Nathan and the PR people that are allegedly involved with Rebel, they are not only mentioned in it, which they deny, but there's meetings and 25K invoices to have services rendered right at the same time, actually 1 week after the lawsuit with Virginia was settled between Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Giuffre. So there's a lot to talk about there. The problem is with the Epstein stuff, I mean, I got put on limited monetization, which is basically like getting demonetized for saying Sex in the City so many times in the and just like that video. And this is my full job. I mean, I do have one other job, but this is my main gig and also my editor's main gig. I would have to, I don't know, maybe think about doing something like a pet food sponsorship or VPN, but I've never done sponsorships. So I don't know, that's maybe a conversation for down the road. But anyway, the last little few slides of stories go more into this, implying that there's this whole network or conspiracy and that Charlotte McInnes, like we talked about earlier, only got a record deal or only got roles in these productions because of either changing her story and siding with Amanda Ghost and the Billionaire or doing something that she's got this. It's again really, really gross. And most of the rest of the stories are just her saying things like that against Charlotte McInnes. She ends the stories by saying, "Everyone knows me, knows I'm a true rebel. I say it how it is. There was dodgy behavior on a movie set by UK producers and I reported it. I thought reporting it would lead to action and hopefully a better industry overall. I thought calling out the bad behavior would make it stop. Instead, maybe I innocently hit the tip of an iceberg. Maybe there's more to this behavior that very powerful people wanted covered up. They seem very invested in silencing me and covering this up." There are a few final things that I will leave past Ash to let you know, but overall, I just wanted to make sure that I could put as much information as possible in a hopefully coherent way so that people do have everything, because I haven't seen any other deep dives on this or really a lot of coverage. This is ongoing and we'll have to see what ends up happening. But for the last few little bits, back to past me. So I will be keeping the closest of eye on this, and I wanted to do a video now because if I waited to the end, it would probably be like a 5-hour video, and this way we can kind of like pick up with what happens, because I do think it's going to be really interesting what happens, because we're probably going to get more information that comes out about all of this smear site stuff. We probably will get more about what Rebel Wilson was doing behind the scenes. And I do think that she is doing a lot of things that seem to indicate that she is just trying to majorly cash in as much as possible. I already know I'm going to have to put an editing ash in by that Noom section, because literally last night when I sat down after filming like the first bit of this video, it's like 1 a.m. I was like, oh, I've finished, I'll film the rest tomorrow. And I opened my phone, and because I've been looking up all this Rebel Wilson stuff, this always happens that my algorithm gets taken over for a while by whomever I'm covering. And the first post I see on Instagram is Rebel Wilson marketing a MRI machine, or like a full body MRI, which, as someone who worked in the medical industry, every single doctor I've ever spoken to is infuriated by this whole thing. And I won't go into it here because I'm sure I've already put an editing ash section in ranting about it. So just to give you the timeline on what happened there. But I really, really want to continue to cover this. If this video doesn't do as well, then I know that I'm still going to want to cover it. So I will do a follow-up video on my second channel, Coffee, Cults, and Cats. But hopefully it does okay and we can continue here. But either way, we're going to continue. And I did post a first video finally on Coffee, Cults, and Cats about the Buffy cancellation. And I do have now a fourth channel, because this is actually technically my second channel, if you didn't know. I have an original channel, Ash Silver, this channel, Coffee, Cults, and Cats, and then I have a compilation channel that's going to be super long compilation videos for the people who said they like to fall asleep or do their chores to the videos. The channel is called Coffee and Cults for Sleep, Chores, and More, and I'll leave the link down below. And you also might have noticed I've been wearing my new Miss G merch, and I will insert the merch winners at the very end of the video when I'm done editing and stuff. So I will do some more giveaways. I have actually, you might have noticed or might not, I have actually been going through the comments on new videos the first couple of days, and I have just been randomly saying, message me on Instagram, and I've been sending those people merch. So I will start a new giveaway, but I am just randomly like sending stuff to people too as just like a thank you so much, because not only has it been amazing like the last year and a half with the channel really starting to pick up, but also just this year it has been so much support, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. So most people are probably left by now because I'm rambling on for too long at the end. But regardless, as I said, we will continue on in this channel or the other one. All of the Coffee and Cult Cinematic Universe channels that I mentioned are below, with the merch store, social media, everything else you could need, the sources in the Google link, because there's a lot to look at if you want to dive into this more. If you made it to the end, leave MVP so I can thank you for watching. And thank you so much for watching. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it, especially if you're here at the end. Thank you so much. And as always, make sure to stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.